So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Jamal Khashoggi. So USA Saudi prince approved Khashoggi's killing. So this is a shocker to absolutely no one. But what we have found out is that it's confirmed in a US report. And so what this means is that Joe Biden's going to be asked a lot of questions about this, and rightfully so. I think Blinken is the Secretary for State or something like that. So, Blinken is going to be also asked a lot of questions, and blink and you'll miss it. A US intelligence report has found that Saudi Crown Prince Prince Salman, that's his name, to me, approved the murder of exiled journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. The report released by the Biden administration says the prince approved a plan to either capture or kill Khashoggi. The US announced sanctions on dozens of Saudis, but not the prince himself. Gee, I wonder why. Saudi Arabia rejected the report, calling it negative, false, and unacceptable. I mean, negative would be accurate, false would be wrong because it's true, and unacceptable. Are you mad that a country released a report? Because in your country that wouldn't happen. Crown Prince Salman, who's effectively the king's ruler, has denied any role in the murder. Khashoggi was killed while visiting the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey, and had his body cut up. He was dismembered. It was horrible, to be honest. I remember reading about this story. It was terrifying. The 59-year-old journalist who had once been an advisor to the Saudi government and close to the royal family, but he fell out of favour and went into self-imposed exile to the US in 2017. From there, he wrote a monthly column in the Washington Post where he criticised the policies of Prince Mohammed. And the thing is, by killing him, you have shed more light on your country's bad behaviour. And it makes everything worse, especially when you kill a journalist, because other journalists are like, yo, you can't be doing that, man, and they're going to be investigating you. They're going to be looking at you, because there were a lot of good investigative journalists out there who were like, yo, what's going on over there? So it's just genuinely stupid what he did. What does the report find? We assess that Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, Prince Salman, has approved an operation in Istanbul to capture or kill Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The report by the Office of the US Director of National Intelligence says. And why the long name, guys? The Crown Prince is the son of King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud and is considered to be the effective ruler of the kingdom. The intelligence report lists 3 reasons for believing that the Crown Prince must have approved the operation: his control of decision making since 2017, the direct involvement in the operation of one of his advisors, as well as a number of his protective detail, his support for using violent measures to silence dissidents abroad. So those are all 3 good reasoning to figure out why Khashoggi would be involved. The report goes on to name individuals allegedly complicit in or responsible for Khashoggi's death, but it says we do not know how far in advance those planned to harm him. I mean, honestly, it's just cowardly here, because they went in there with bone saws. They knew exactly what they were doing: kill or capture. Saudi authorities have blamed the killing on a rogue operation by a team of agents sent to return the journalist to the kingdom. So kidnap. Essentially, it's kidnap gone wrong. That's the argument that they're using here. And the Saudi court tried and sentenced 5 individuals to 20 years in prison last year after initially sentencing them to death. Like, okay, great. Who are these people and what relation did they have to the king? And also, how many other ones were involved? Are you telling me this was 5 people only? There must have been way more people involved than 5. You had, the expert, you had the person who was meant to give the injection, and you had a whole security detail there. In 2019, UN Special Rapporteur Angus Calamard accused Saudi state of the deliberate and premeditated execution of Khashoggi and dismissed the Saudi trial as antithesis of justice, which is true. It should have been public, and we should have known exactly who was involved. But, it's Saudi Arabia. What does this mean for US-Saudi relations? Probably not much, to be honest. Shortly after the report was released, so this is Blinken, announced the travel restriction dubbed the Khashoggi ban. Those targeted are believed to be directly engaged in serious extra-territorial counter-dissident activities, he said. It's fancy pants words for saying that they were involved in serious problems to deal with dissidents. I mean, again, this is like military talk, I guess, or spy people talk. Perpetrators targeting perceived dissidents on behalf of any foreign government should not be permitted to reach American soil, he warned, or any other foreign soil, to be honest. In addition, the Treasury Department sanctioned some of those around the world. The Crown Prince, one of those of his close aides, former Deputy Intelligence Chief Ahmed Asidi, as well as personal protective force, which was involved in the killing. So we know that this man was involved in the killing. Is he in pen? No. As far as 2018, the CIA reportedly believed that the Crown Prince has ordered the murder, but the allegation that he was involved has never been made public by US officials until now. That's because Biden's in charge and not Trump, because Trump loves that oil money. He also accused, of Saudi Arabia of committing 9/11, and then he became boys with them. So Saudi Arabia, the world's biggest exporter, is a key American ally in the Middle East. Maybe America needs to assess its friends. US President Joe Biden is expected to take a firmer stance than his predecessor, Donald Trump, on human rights and the rule of law. I mean, he's not going to do that much. I mean, American forces are still there in quote-unquote defense of Saudi Arabia, which is nonsense. In a phone call with King Salman, the president affirmed the importance of the United States places on universal human rights. Again, this is nonsense. According to the sources quoted by Reuters, a news agency, the Biden administration is also considering the cancellation of arms deals with Saudi Arabia that pose human rights concerns, as well as limiting of future military sales to defensive weapons. I mean, if you wanted to do this, you would have done this by now, because unless you've missed it, Joe Biden, the Saudis are carrying out a genocide in Yemen. I don't know if you missed that bit. So, dismissing the US report, the Saudi Foreign Ministry insisted those responsible for the crime had been investigated. Oh, it's a load of rubbish. It further rejected any measure that infringes upon its leadership, sovereignty, and more rubbish. So we've got some analysis here. The public blaming of Prince Salman is an extraordinary rebuke, but so far he's escaped sanctions despite calls from activists, Democrats in Congress, and UN Special Advisor Angus Calamard. Sorry if I've butchered your name, honestly. I mean, that's the wrong word to use. Sorry if I've mispronounced your name. The carefully calibrated moves reflect the fine line that President Biden is treading. He wants to act on his promise to hold Saudi Arabia accountable for human rights abuses, but also wants to preserve ties with the kingdom. But the thing is, are you sure you want to be friends with a country that does this? Because if you do, then fair enough, bro. But honestly, you can't do both. You can't be a champion on human rights and still be friends with countries like Saudi Arabia. It doesn't work. They're not compatible. Because Saudi Arabia, it plays a role in the Middle East issues and matters to the US, such as ending the war in Yemen. I mean, Saudi Arabia are directly involved in that war, re-engaging Iran, fighting Islamist extremism, and advancing Arab-Israeli ties. So he wants to preserve ties with Saudi Arabia because it plays a key role in those things. I mean, it's carrying out a genocide in Yemen. It's very hostile to Iran, and Iran is very hostile back towards Saudi Arabia. Fighting Islamist extremism, Saudi Arabia spreads Wahhabism and extremism around the world, and advancing Arab-Israeli ties. That's the only one that Saudi Arabia actually does. The other ones it doesn't do. It makes them worse. So again, a really poor argument here. The president has made clear that unlike his predecessor Donald Trump, he will not have direct contact with Prince Salman. Instead, Mr. Biden is dealing with his father. I don't understand why anyone should care about that. Surely you want to go to the organ grind, straight to the organ grinder, not the monkey. His dad's not in charge anymore. It's the son. It's Prince Salman. So this is, again, it's BTEC analysis here from the BBC. Not surprising. So, how was Khashoggi killed? I mean, trigger warning here. So Khashoggi went to the consulate in 2018 to obtain papers allowing him to marry his Turkish fiancée. He had allegedly received assurances from the Crown Prince's brother, Prince Khalid bin Salman, who was ambassador to the US at the time, that it would be safe to visit the consulate. So we know he's probably involved as well, because he told his brother that, this guy Khashoggi is coming into the consulate, let's get him. So he's involved. Was he sanctioned? No. Prince Khalid has denied any communication with the journalist. Who am I going to believe, this guy or the people who have given the report? I'm not going to believe this guy, Prince Khalid. According to Saudi prosecutors, Khashoggi was forcibly restrained after a struggle and injected with a large amount of a drug, resulting in an overdose and led to his death. His body was then dismembered and handed over to a collaborator outside the consulate, prosecutors said, and the remains were never found. So if this was a kidnapping gone wrong, right? You didn't have to do this. You didn't have to inject him with anything. You could have cuffed him and tied his legs. This was deliberate. I think they went to kill him. I think they went to kill him. I don't think this was a kidnap operation. I think this was a murder. This was an assassination. That's my opinion, anyways. You can have your own opinion on this one, as long as it's not Prince. Saudi Arabia was in the wrong for this. this is just shocking. This is like the US pretending to do something about this and not really doing anything is not a surprise. I mean, this guy's smug as hell because he's going to get away with it, because he's in he's in charge of one of the most powerful countries in the world, which is a massive oil exporter and a key strategic ally of Western countries. But if Joe Biden really was a champion for human rights, what he would do is end or reduce the forever wars in the US, and he would push for international sanctions. He would push for international sanctions on the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to bring him into justice and have him tried in The Hague. That's what would happen here, but that's never going to happen because the US doesn't really care about human rights. The human rights for the vast majority of countries is a political football that they can kick about when they feel high and mighty to berate other countries. But in reality, no, hardly any countries care about human rights. I couldn't name you many. But I'm going to leave it there. The important points we learn is that the US has officially recognised Prince Salman as the man who ordered the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. Is anything going to happen from this? No. So is this segment kind of pointless? Yes, but it's to point out that Joe Biden, Trump, the more you think that things have changed, the more they really stay the same, and that these two guys ideologically are not a million miles away from each other. Anyways, I want to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.